Welcome back. In today's class, I will give you a quick and an informal introduction to Python. We will learn some key concepts like how to declare and define a variable, how to do basic arithmetic operations using operators, what are the different logical operators, how to write loops, how to construct conditional statements, and how to accept inputs from the user. We will see several examples that will help us understand these key concepts. And hopefully by the end of this class, we should be able to apply these basic building blocks to write our first Python program. Now with C++, we began by creating a new C++ project in Visual Studio. And then we added a .cpp file to our C++ project, to which we wrote code, which we then compiled and executed. Now with Python, we will instead create a new Python project. So go to File, New, Project. On the left hand side, now select Python. You can either create a new empty Python application, or you can create a new project from an existing source code. So just provide a new name for this Python project, hit OK, and new project will be created. Now since I've already created a new project, I'm just going to show you how it looks. So here I've created a project with name basics, and now I've added a file to this project. To do that, you can right click on the project name, go to add. You can either add a new item or add an existing item. With Python now, we will add a file with extension .py. So here I've added a file called basics.py, which will be the file in which we will write our Python code. Now, unlike C++, we don't need to create a file, write code within the file to evaluate or execute code in Python. We can simply open this interactive Python console window within Visual Studio, write code directly here, and then evaluate it or execute it. So suppose I want to know what is 2 times 12, I can simply write 2 times 12, hit enter, and the result is shown to us. So to do simple calculations, we don't need to create a file, write code within the file and execute it. We can simply open this Python console window within Visual Studio, write code, and then interactively execute it. Now suppose we want to execute the same piece of code multiple times, then it's better to create a new file and write code within that file. Now let's go through this basics.py file line by line, and let's try to understand what each of these lines is doing. This will help us understand some of the key concepts. So first, let's see how to create a comment in Python. With C++, we used 2 backslashes to create a comment. Any line that began with 2 backslashes was treated by the compiler as a comment. Now a line that begins with a hash in Python program is treated as a comment. So anything that follows a hash will be treated as a comment. To add a new comment in the new line, you will simply begin the line with a hash. Next, let's see how to declare and define a variable. With C++, first we provided the data type for the variable, then a name for a variable, and optionally we would either initialize the variable with the value, or we simply declared the variable uninitialized. With Python, there are 2 key differences. First, we don't mention the data type. So here I'm simply declaring a variable called pi. The name of the variable is pi, and I'm initializing it with a value which is equal to 3.14159. So the second distinction is that you're not allowed to simply declare a variable uninitialized in Python. It's always necessary to declare and initialize the variable with a value at the time of declaration. So since the type of this value 3.14159 is of type float, the variable's type is deduced from its value. So the type of this variable pi is also a float. Similarly, I'm declaring a variable radius and initializing it with value equal to 2. 2 is of type int, so the variable radius is also of type integer. So in Python, the data type of the variable is deduced from the value, initial value that is stored when the variable is declared. Now we can also declare variables by initializing it by evaluating an expression and storing the result of this expression as the inside the variable. So here I'm evaluating expression which is multiplying pi with radius times radius. So here I'm computing the area of the circle using pi times radius square, and the result of this expression is stored within the variable area. Now to print the content of a variable, you can use the print method. In C++ we used std : cout. With Python now we will use the print function, wherein we can pass a variable to this print method and the content of the variable will be displayed onto the terminal. Now let's see other arithmetic operations. So here I'm adding 1 to this variable radius, storing the result back in radius. And now again I'm computing the area of the circle using pi times radius square. This time I'm using a different operator to compute the power of a number. Now with C++ we've seen the standard 5 operators: plus, minus, multiplication, division and modulus. With Python we have 2 additional operators. So the 2 new arithmetic operators are divide by or floor division, and star or exponent. So first let's see what is x divided by y. Before that, first let's check what is x divided by y. Now in C++ we know that when we do 5 divided by 2, the answer is equal to 2. Since 5 is of type integer, 2 is also of type integer, so the result is also of type integer. But in Python, 5 divided by 2 will give us a floating point number, so the result is 2.5. So this is an important distinction to remember. Suppose we want the result to be of type integer of this division, we will instead use the floor division operator. So 5 divided by 2 will give us the result as an int. The result is equal to 2. So depending on the data type of the result, we will either use divided by or divided by. Now star is the exponent operator. So when we want to compute x to the power of y, we can use x star y instead, which can be read as x to the power of y. So x is the base, y is the exponent, which are the 2 operands to this operator star. In C++ we had special function std : POW, to which we pass 2 arguments. So std : POW of x comma y will give you x to the power of y. In Python we can use this inbuilt operator star instead to compute x to the power of y. So here I'm computing radius to the power of 2 using radius star 2. So again pi times radius to the power of 2 will give us the area of the circle, which is total in this variable area. Now let's execute the code. Similar to C++, in a C++ program, we can add breakpoints and execute code until the breakpoint is hit. Similar to that, we can also do that in Python, so we can add a breakpoint inside our Python code. And now, first the radius was equal to 2, so the area of the circle when radius is equal to 2 is 2 square is 4, 4 times 3.14159 is equal to 12.56636. Next we added 1 to radius, so radius is equal to 3, and 3 square is 9, 9 times 3.14159 is the area of the circle, which is equal to 28.27. Okay. The next example just shows you the difference between the division and divided by operator. So I'm declaring 2 variables, number 1 and number 2. Notice number 1 is initialized with the value equal to 50. Number 2 is initialized by evaluating the expression first. The result of the expression is stored within this variable number 2. So number 1 is 50, number 2 is 25. Next we are checking what is number 1 minus number 2 divided by 4. So 50 minus 25 is 25. 25 divided by 4 is equal to 6.25. Next, number 1 minus number 2 divided by 4 should give us an integer result. So the result should be equal to 6. Okay, let's execute this code and verify the result. Notice the first expression evaluated to 6.25, the second expression, which was the floor division, evaluated to 6. Great. Now let's continue. Next I want to show you how to assign uh, um values to multiple variables in the single statement. So here this particular statement executes as follows. So I'm declaring two variables a and b. They're separated by a comma, and I'm initializing it with values 0, 1. So 0 and 1 are the two initial values. They're separated again by a comma. So variable a will be initialized with value equal to 0. Variable b will now be initialized with value equal to 1. So if I simply execute the single line of code, I can go to the watch window, type a. Notice a is equal to 0. Now let's type b. B should be equal to 1. So you can use this multiple assignment statement in Python to assign values to multiple variables in a single statement. Now it's important to understand how this multiple assignment statement executes. So the order of evaluation is important. If we don't understand how this is executing, we will not be able to answer a question like this. So here, first the question is, what's the value of b at the end of this loop? Let's not worry about how to declare a while loop right now. All I want you to pay attention is what happens when this particular line a comma b is equal to b comma a plus b is evaluated. What happens? What is the order of evaluation? So the while loop here is evaluating as long as b is less than 10. When b is greater than or equal to 10, the loop will exit. There is only one statement within the body of the while loop, which is the multiple assignment statement. Now I've broken down this while loop into several iterations. So let's first exit the code, add a new breakpoint, and let's work through this while loop at one step at a time. So initially a is equal to 0, b is equal to 1. First let's understand how this multiple assignment statement evaluates. So I've written here a comment which briefly explains how this multiple assignment statement is evaluated by Python. First, the right hand side of the assignment operator is evaluated, and the right hand side of the assignment operator is evaluated from left to right. So first b is parsed. Since it's not an expression, there is nothing to evaluate. Then a plus b is parsed. It's an expression, so it will be evaluated. So whatever is the current value of a, current value of b, both of them are used to add, and the result is computed. Next, b will be, whatever is the content of b will be stored in a, and whatever was the result of this expression a plus b will be stored in b. So notice we won't use the new value of a to compute a plus b. A plus b is computed first, the result is stored in a temporary variable, and then b is a is assigned value equal to b, and b is assigned value which was equal to the result of this expression. So the order is very important. Now keep in mind this order, let's evaluate this while loop one iteration at a time. So initially a is equal to 0, b is equal to 1. So b is equal to 1, a plus b will be 1 plus 0, which is equal to 1. So at the end of the first iteration, a should be equal to 1, b also is equal to 1. Now the second iteration, b is equal to 1, a plus b is now 1 plus 1, which is equal to 2. So a should be 1 at the end of the second iteration, b is equal to 2 at the end of the second iteration. Similarly, a is equal to 2 at the end of the third iteration, b is equal to 2 plus 1, which is equal to 3, and so on and so forth. So in the next iteration, a is equal to 3, b is equal to 5, 3 plus 2 is 5. Next iteration, a is equal to 5, b is equal to 5 plus 3, which is 8. In the last iteration, a is equal to 8, and b is equal to 8 plus 5, which is equal to 13. Since 13 is greater than 10, the while loop will exit. So the answer to this question will be is D, 13. So it's important to understand how this multiple assignment statement is evaluated. If we change the order in which we evaluate this multiple assignment statement, then the answer can be different. Now let's print the value of b at the end of this while loop, and let's check what will be the value. Okay. Now notice value is equal to 13. Now since we know how this multiple assignment statement works, let's check whether this multiple assignment statement can be used to swap two numbers. So suppose I write the statement a comma b is equal to b comma a. Let's see what happens. Will the swap a and b, or will a and b remain the same? That's the question. So notice a is equal to 8 currently, b is equal to 13. Let's execute this one line of code and check what will be the value of a and b. Now a is equal to 13 and b is equal to 8, so the value is swapped. Remember in C++, to swap two numbers, we created a temporary variable temp, stored b inside temp, then stored b inside a, and then stored temp inside b. That was the procedure to swap two variables. Now with Python, it's as simple as writing this single statement, which is a comma b is equal to b comma a. You don't need to create any temporary variables to store the intermediate result. So this is one of the uses of this multiple assignment statement. Now let's move on. Now I want to show you what happens when we use this plus operator with a string. So here I'm declaring a as a string. So 1, 2, 3 in quotes is of type string. Now the question is, can we write statements like a is equal to a plus 1? What happens when we add 1 to this string 1, 2, 3? Whether the result will be equal to 1, 2, 3, 1. Whether it will be 1, 2, 4. That is, 1 is added to the last digit. The last digit here is 3. So 3 plus 1 is 4. Is the result 1, 2, 4? Or is it something else? So first let's uncomment this code and then execute it. Now notice this code does not work. So we got a runtime exception. Unlike C++, where we used to get a compile time errors or warnings, in Python we will only get runtime exceptions. And the exception here says that we cannot concatenate a string and an integer. So the plus operator here works as a concatenation operator when we are dealing it when the operands are strings. And for the plus operator, both the operands should be of the same type, and they should both be strings. So we cannot mix an integer and a string. So next, the question is, what happens when we execute code like a is equal to a plus a? Let's first evaluate this expression, print the value of a, and then check the result. Notice value of a was 1, 2, 3, so it was initialized to 1, 2, 3. After this line was executed, the value of a is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the plus operator is a concatenation operator when the operands are strings. Now let's go to the interactive console window. Let's again write a to b 1, 2, 3. Now let's write b to be equal to string 4, 5, 6. Now let's see what is a plus b. Now notice again, a plus b is concatenating two strings a and b, so it's joining both the strings a and b, so the result is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We can also do something like a plus, we can write temporary string literal, so I'm adding an underscore in between a and b, so now this should evaluate to 1, 2, 3 underscore 4, 5, 6. So plus operator, the plus operator when the operands are string works as a concatenation operator. Now next we want to check whether we can use star operator with strings. So b is initialized with a string 2, and now I'm checking whether I can do b is equal to b star 2. So we already saw that we cannot mix integers and strings as operands for the operator plus. Now the question is, can we mix integers and string for operator star? So let's evaluate this code and check what happens. Now notice we didn't get a runtime error, which means that this is valid syntax, and the result is 22. Now the way this code works is b star 2 is repeat b 2 times. So let's go back to the interactive console window and let's see what is a star 3. So a is equal to 1, 2, 3, so a star is 3 will repeat A 3 times, so the result should be 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3. So if we want to repeat a particular string n times, we can do A times n. If we want to concatenate two strings, we will write A plus P, where A and B are both of type strings. Great. So let's continue next. Now I want to introduce you to if conditional statements. So here we will look at an example of a nested if condition, and we will see how this if condition differs from the syntax in C++. So here I'm declaring a variable called sum first. It's initialized with value equal to -1. Now with C++, the syntax for if condition was as follows. First we write if, then within parenthesis a condition, and then within opening and closing brace we write the body of the if statement. In Python it's slightly different. So we don't have parenthesis first, and then we don't have opening and closing braces to write the body of the if statement. So here you simply write if space a condition followed by colon. So colon is important. At the end of loops or conditional statements in Python, we need to write a colon. Without colon, this code will not compile. So you get an error, syntax error. So the error says that unexpected token. So a colon is necessary for this particular when we write if statements in Python. Now, the body of if does not begin and end with braces, unlike in C++. In Python, the body of the if statement has a different indentation to the if statement itself. So notice here, the if statement, so the body of the if statement is indented with a single tab. Now, the programmer has a choice of what type of indentation to use. You can either use spaces or tabs. You need to choose one type of indentation and use it consistently throughout the code. That is, you're not allowed to mix spaces and tabs as indentations in different places in code. Either you use spaces or you use tabs to indent the code. Now, the body of the if statement has one level of indentation. So I'm using one tab to indent. Everything which has one tab indentation will be treated as the body of this if condition, until again we get a statement which has no indentation. So everything until the next if condition here, where if 1 is greater than 2, is part of the body of the first if condition. Now within this if condition, we are setting the value of this variable sum to be equal to 0 first. Then again we have an if condition. So this was an example of a nested if. So we have an if within an if, wherein again we are checking where 1 is greater than 0, that's the condition, followed by a colon. And notice now, since this is the second if condition, you have two tabs. So you have two level of indentations for the body of this second if condition. Now in C++, we had keyword else space if for else if. In Python, it is elif. So elif is read as else if. So here I want to check else if 1 is equal to 1. I want to change sum to be equal to 2. Again, since elif is part of this earlier if condition, you have two levels of indentation for the body of elif. Now the question here was asking what is the value of sum at the end of this code. So you're given this small piece of code. You saw this already in midterm. We provide a simple code snippet like this and ask you to evaluate the code. So let's try to evaluate this piece of code. Sum was initialized with value equal to -1. The first condition is checking whether 1 is less than 0. Since 1 is never less than 0, this body is never executed. So we can directly jump to the next if condition. Next if condition is checking whether 1 is greater than 2. Since 1 is also not greater than 2, the body of the if is not evaluated. So sum should be equal to -1 at the end of this code. So the correct answer is A. Now I've provided you a reference here, which is listing all the different comparison operators supported in Python. This is the same as C++. So you have greater than or equal to, you have less than or equal to, and you have equal to and not equal to. Now in C++, when we wanted to combine two conditions, we were using the logical AND or logical or one of the logical operators to combine two conditions. So that would be a compound statement. In Python, instead, we can write statements like this. So I'm declaring a variable x, it's initialized to value equal to 5, and then I'm checking whether x is in between 0 and 10. To check whether x is in the interval 0, 10, we can simply write this statement 0 less than x less than 10. Notice this is a more mathematical way of describing whether x is in the interval 0, 10. And this syntax is supported in Python. So you can simply write if 0 is less than x less than 10 colon, then if x is in between 0, 10, you will evaluate the body of the if condition, where I am simply printing the value x, and this string literal which says that x is in the interval 0, 10. So this is an example of printing two things within the same print method. So you can call print with multiple variables or literals. So here first I'm passing a variable x, so its content is displayed. Then we will display this string literal which is in interval 0, 10. So first let's evaluate the code, check what is the value of sum. So at the end of this code, let's go to watch window. Notice sum is still equal to -1. Okay, now let's execute this code here and check what will be the print. That is whether we see the print or not. Now notice we see that 5 is in the interval 0, 10. So you can use this 0 less than x less than 10 as a statement to combine two conditions into a single statement. Now we also have logical operators in Python. In C++ we had ampersand for logical AND. You had two pipe for OR. So this was AND, this was OR, and this was NOT in C++. Now in Python you have keywords AND, OR, and NOT. So you can simply use these keywords when you want to when you have two Boolean operands and you want to take a logical AND, you can simply use the keyword AND. Okay, so now I've declared a variable x, it's initialized with value true, then a variable y, it's initialized with value false. Notice in C++, true and false keywords began with lowercase t and lowercase f. In Python, the keywords true and false begin with uppercase t and uppercase f. So let's evaluate the next 3 lines and check what will be x and y, x or y, and not x. Okay, so since x is true, y is false, true and false is false, true or false is true, and not of true is false.